Hi, I'm Tristan. This is Thinking About Politics, and today we get to relax. You see, the election's over. Joe Biden's going to be our next president. Nothing to do but settle in for an uneventful winter with our copy of John Stuart Mill's On Liberty. We'll give it a read, and, let's get thinking about it, guys.
This is a case where they're trying to steal an election. They can try to steal the election from us.
We don't have to respond to that, right? On Thursday, November 5th, President of the United States, Donald Trump, took to the airwaves from the presidential briefing room at the White House. So, okay. I don't always see eye to eye with the president, but you know what? In good faith, let's see what he has to say as our president.
Good evening.
Hey, buddy.
I'd like to provide the American people with an update on our efforts to protect the integrity of our very important 2020 election.
All right, here we go. I got a notebook and I got my pen. Let's go. Okay.
If you count the legal votes, I easily win.
Good for you, sir. Now, about those efforts you were talking about.
If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal.
They? Is it them? Are they doing that again? Ooh, them. They're always doing things.
We're looking at them very strongly.
Well, looking at them very strongly. I should say you should. You can't take your eye off of them.
I've already decisively won many critical states. We won these and many other victories despite historic election interference from big media, big money, and big tech. As everybody saw, we won by historic numbers. And the pollsters got it knowingly wrong. They got it knowingly wrong.
Okay, yeah, we're really getting somewhere now. Step one of this conspiracy. Get polls wrong. Okay.
We had polls that were so ridiculous. They thought there was going to be a big blue wave. That was false. It was done for suppression reasons. But instead, there was a big red wave.
They have a plan to steal the election by late arriving ballots. And this plan is accomplished in part by getting the polls knowingly wrong. Is the red wave part of the conspiracy, or is that part of your efforts to combat it? Could you clarify there?
And it's been properly acknowledged, actually, by the media. They were, I think, very impressed.
That's no. Not going to clarify? Okay, moving on.
We kept the Senate despite having twice as many seats to defend as Democrats. Yet for the first time ever, we lost 0 races in the House. 0 races. Very unusual thing. 0.
Didn't you call us here to talk about, election efforts or efforts to protect the election? So far, all I got is the media, big money, and big tech published false polls and caused a red wave. That's what I got so far. Red wave's your term, not mine. So, did you stop the fraud?
And actually won many new seats with, I think, many more on the way. More Republican women were elected to Congress than ever before. That's a great achievement. We grew our party by 4 million voters. The greatest. Democrats are the party of the big donors, the big media, the big tech, it seems.
It seems. Well, are they or aren't they? Can you pick a lane here, buddy? Either they are or they aren't. Do you know?
And Republicans have become the party of the American worker, and that's what's happened. As everyone now recognizes, media polling was election interference in the truest sense of that word.
Huh. He's called us here to make a deep philosophical statement on the impact of media coverage of elections on the American electorate and how it is really antithetical to the highest ideals of Republican government to run your elections like a popularity contest. It's deep. Didn't see it coming.
By powerful special interests, these really phony polls, I have to call them phony polls, fake polls, were designed to keep our voters at home, create the illusion of momentum for Mr. Biden, and diminish Republicans' ability to raise funds They were what's called suppression polls. Everyone knows that now.
Well, looks like I got that wrong.
And it's never been used to the extent that it's been used on this last election. To highlight just a few examples, the day before election, Quinnipiac, which was wrong on every occasion that I know of, had Joe Biden up by 5 points in Florida. So they had me losing Florida by a lot, and I ended up winning Florida by a lot. Other than that, they were very accurate.
You just said they were wrong about everything! What are you talking about? All right. Really interesting point here. You say that Quinnipiac got it wrong. You said that they were knowingly wrong in an attempt to fix the election. But you also just said they're actually wrong all the time. So, like, are they wrong on purpose all the time? Or do they just suck at polling? And if they just suck at polling or make up their own numbers anyway, why would they have to try to get it wrong this time? And why would anybody rely on them if they're wrong all the time? You see where I'm going with this?
They had him up 4 points in Ohio, and they were up by 12.2 points. And they also won Ohio, great state of Ohio, very easily.
Didn't you call us here to update us on your efforts to protect the election from late arriving ballots being delivered to nondescript but totally real polling places?
The Washington Post said Biden up 17 points in Wisconsin, and it was basically even. There are now only a few states yet to be decided in the presidential race. The voting apparatus of those states are run in all cases by Democrats. We were winning in all the key locations by a lot, actually. And then our numbers started miraculously getting whittled away in secret.
That's how counting works, I guess. You're throwing a lot of dots out, right? Like, you're like, there's a dot, and there's a dot, and there's a dot, and there's a dot. You're not necessarily connecting them, but you're really implying that we should, and I don't think that they do. For instance, you say the election apparatuses in the remaining states to be counted are all run by Democrats. I don't even know that that's necessarily true, but assuming it was, are you saying that the Democratic Party is a criminal organization that ordered its party members to deliberately miscount an election or otherwise break the law and their party members listen to them? Or are you just saying that these people are Democrats and therefore don't like you to a sufficient extent that they would violate the law and the sacred trust placed in election officials? I just want to be clear for my notes, that's all. And like, you're talking about getting whittled away. Like, yeah, man, I know what you mean. One time I was watching the Super Bowl and I saw the Patriots down 28-3 in the third quarter. But man, they came back. I went nuts. It summed up, it ain't over till the fat lady sings. It's a colloquialism. You can look it up.
And they wouldn't allow legally permissible observers. We went to court in a couple of instances and we were able to get the observers put in. And when the observers got there, they wanted them 60, 70 feet away, 80 feet, 100 feet away, or outside the building to observe people inside the building.
Which was it? 30, 60, 100 outside the building? You landed on outside the building. Was it outside the building? Could you just say that next time? Can you just say that now? Why don't you say that now?
And we won a case, a big case, and predicted that. I've been talking about mail-in voting for a long time. It's really destroyed our system. It's a corrupt system. And it makes people corrupt even if they aren't by nature. But they become corrupt.
What exactly about mail ballots makes people corrupt? Like, first of all, you were calling us here to update us on your efforts to fight corruption in the election, and you're telling us that mail ballots just make people criminals somehow? And how exactly would someone corruptly vote by mail? Like, putting the wrong date? Postmarking it wrong? That's like the biggest violation I could see.
It's too easy. They want to find out how many votes they need, and then they seem to be able to find them. They wait, and then they find them.
But how do you know that? Where's that information coming from? You're not there. How do you know? Like, why are you saying that people are just counting multiple times? Why aren't you giving us any specifics that we can go and verify on our own? Unless your claims aren't genuine, and you're only saying this because you're a corrupt politician clinging to political relevancy with every fiber of your being. I mean, that'd be nuts. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that would make sense. But, like, mail ballots make people corrupt or criminal doesn't make a lot of sense on its face. Could you clarify?
And You see that on election night. We were ahead because they're finding ballots all of a sudden. Oh, we have some mail-in ballots. It's amazing how those mail-in ballots are so one-sided, too. I know that it's supposed to be to the advantage of the Democrats, but in all cases, they're so one-sided.
Well, one side, you told people not to vote by mail.
We were up by nearly 700,000 votes in Pennsylvania. Although we won a court case, the judge said you have to have observers. Likewise in Georgia, and they're appealing. Actually, they're appealing. We won a case that we want people to watch, and we want observers, and they're actually appealing, which is sort of interesting. I wonder why they'd appeal.
So is this it? Is this your update? The ballots are being counted, and your lead's going away? So you sued to get more observers? We done?
That all we want to do is have people watch as they do the vote tabulations. A little bit. Likewise, in Georgia, a pipe burst in a faraway location, totally unrelated to the location of what was happening, and they stopped counting for 4 hours, and a lot of things happened.
All types of things. All types of things. What types of things? Could you fill us in? You gonna tell us what you're talking about, or is this all gonna be innuendo and like doublespeak?
The election apparatus in Georgia is run by Democrats. Our goal is to defend the integrity of the election. We'll not allow the corruption to steal such an important election, or any election for that matter. And we can't allow anybody to silence our voters.
And other voters too, right?
And manufacture results. I've been doing this tremendous litigation going on, and this is a case where they're trying to steal an election. They're trying to rig an election.
Who do you think they are exactly? Are they the Democratic National Committee? Are they just registered Democrats? Are they anybody who votes for a Democrat? And are they trying to rig an election, like something that happens beforehand? Or are they trying to steal an election, like something that happens after the fact? Or is it both? Just curious.
And we can't let that happen. Detroit and Philadelphia, known as two of the most corrupt political places anywhere in our country, easily cannot be responsible for engineering the outcome of a presidential race.
Okay, Philadelphia and Detroit. We're talking about Philadelphia and Detroit. Tell us about your efforts to combat corruption in Philadelphia and Detroit.
It's a very important presidential race. In Pennsylvania, Democrats have gone to the state Supreme Court to try and ban our election observers, and very strongly.
Went all the way to the Supreme Court, not just to ban, but to very strongly ban.
Now, we won the case, but they're going forward. They don't want anybody in there. They don't want anybody watching them as they count the ballots.
Man, I feel bad. There were like literally live webcams set up for a lot of these polling places. If I had known you were curious, I would have sent you a link, man.
And I can't imagine why. There's absolutely no legitimate reason why they would not want to have people watching.
What extra people did you need in the room in Philadelphia and Detroit? Why is it that you think you need extra people exactly? Are the municipal workers of Philadelphia and Detroit just so corrupt they could steal an entire election? What about the Democrats? Or do the Democrats control all of Philadelphia and Detroit? I just want to be clear. I just wish you would just connect some of these dots for me. Just please, just very clearly connect them. And I don't want people popping up in the comments trying to fill in the blanks for this guy. This is his speech. He can do it. This is like the prequels. I don't care if you can think of a way to retcon in midichlorians and Jar Jar Binks in a way that makes more sense. George Lucas didn't. And that's what I'm talking about.
They're trying, obviously, to commit fraud. There's no question about that. In Philadelphia, observers have been kept far away, very far away, so far that people are using binoculars to try and see, and there's been tremendous problems caused. They put paper on all of the windows so you can't see in, and the people that are banned are very unhappy and become somewhat violent.
Gee, someone who would grow violent when asked to give poll workers some space was asked to leave? I wonder why that would be. Also, not for nothing, but if all these people care so much about the polls, why don't they become poll workers? Just a thought, but that's That's crazy, isn't it? These people don't care enough to actually do the work. They just care enough to go and give some little old lady the business who's at her local polling place trying to do her part as a citizen.
The 11th Circuit ruled that in Georgia the votes have been in by Election Day, that they should be in by Election Day, and they weren't. Votes are coming in after Election Day. And they had a ruling already that you have to have the votes in by Election Day. To the best of my knowledge, votes should be in by Election Day. And they didn't do that.
So is that an actual fact, or is that just something you heard? That last piece of the sentence there, that to the best of my knowledge, makes it seem like maybe this isn't a real fact?
Democrat officials never believed they could win this election honestly. I really believe that. That's why they did the mail-in ballots, where there's tremendous corruption and fraud going on. That's why they mailed out tens of millions of unsolicited ballots without any verification measures whatsoever.
Without any verification whatsoever? Oh, that does sound bad. Is this all of Georgia we're talking about here? Where are we? Where are we talking about? Philadelphia? Where are we here? Just everywhere?
And I've told everybody that these things would happen because I've seen it happen. I watched a lot of different elections.
What? Hang on. This is the most interesting statement of the entire speech. There are some pretty profound implications stemming from all of this. Possibilities are fascinating. Are you saying that you saw this happen in another election somewhere, where there was a lot of mail-in ballots and there was a lot of fraud? Could you tell us more about this election? Could you tell us where and when it was to let us verify your claim? Or are you saying that you saw this happen because you just knew ahead of time, because you're like so bigly smart or clairvoyant? Or are you telling us you saw this in something like a dream? Are you a time traveler who's come back to the year 2020 after seeing the election of 2020 get stolen? But please, don't fill in any of the details. Just go on.
Before they decided to go with this big, massive election with tens of millions of ballots going out to everybody, in many cases totally unsolicited. This was unprecedented in American history. This was by design, despite years of claiming to care about the election security. They refused to include any requirement to verify signatures.
But them again. Very sneaky. Again, where are we talking? Georgia? Detroit? Details matter.
Identities, or even determine whether they're eligible or ineligible to vote. People are walking in there. They have no idea.
They don't?
They're just taking numbers.
Are they?
They're writing down things.
What types of things?
The workers, and doing a lot of bad things, and we have a lot of information coming.
What kind of information? About what? From where? Is this information reliable?
And litigation that you'll see that will shake even you people up.
I think the litigation by his campaign was what he was referring to in the beginning when he said an update on his efforts to fight fraud in the election. So he thinks his campaign is protecting us from fraud. But, shouldn't, the government be doing that if there's actual fraud and legitimate allegations of impropriety? Is the, Justice Department on vacation? What's going on? The Justice Department is defending Donald Trump right now in a defamation lawsuit where he called a woman who accused him of rape a liar. The United States government is defending him on that. Why wouldn't they prosecute allegations of actual fraud in an election?
And you've seen it all. The officials overseeing the counting in Pennsylvania and other key states are all part of a corrupt Democrat machine that you've written about, and for a long time you've been writing about.
Tell me more about this machine. How are we taking it down?
The corrupt Democrat machine. I went to school there, and I know a lot about it. It hasn't changed. It's a long time ago, and hasn't changed. It's gotten worse.
Those are two different things. Either it hasn't changed or it's gotten worse. Pick a lane, buddy. And why in 4 years have you not brought down this woefully corrupt machine? Why is it affecting the 2020 election?
In Pennsylvania, partisan Democrats have allowed ballots in the state to be received 3 days after the election. And we think much more than that.
But why do you think that? What is this based on? What about this conversation do you think is actually informative? Is there anything else in this update on your efforts to protect election integrity? Or is this just a bunch of vague nonsense in a press release about your upcoming litigation?
And they're counting those without even postmarks or any identification whatsoever. So you don't have postmarks, you don't have identification. There have been a number of disturbing irregularities across the nation. Our campaign has been denied access to observe any counting in Detroit. Detroit is another place.
That it is.
And I wouldn't say it has the best reputation for election integrity.
Oh, sorry, cut you off there.
Poll workers in Michigan were duplicating ballots, but when our observers attempted to challenge the activity, those poll workers jumped in front of the volunteers to block their view so that they couldn't see what they were doing.
Well, that hardly seems like systematic corruption, doesn't it? In fact, that kind of seems like one of the stories you hear when one kid complains that another kid punched him, but then when you investigate, you find out that the kid who was complaining punched him in the first place. You're going to need some more information on this incident, sir. Plus, you just said they couldn't see. So how did they see that ballots were being duplicated? Also, what does duplicating ballots mean? I mean, you're Xeroxing them? Are you copying them? What does that mean? Could you tell me in plain English?
And it became a little bit dangerous. One major hub for counting ballots in Detroit covered up the windows again with large pieces of cardboard. And so they wanted to protect and block the counting area. They didn't want anybody seeing the counting. In Detroit, there were hours of unexplained delay in delivering many of the votes for counting. The final batch did not arrive until 4 in the morning.
So just to review so far, your evidence of corruption is polling places were boarded up so that people couldn't peer in from the outside. There's one. A mail truck in Detroit didn't arrive till 4 a.m. 2, someone somewhere jumped in front of an observer, you say. All right. Ballots were mailed to everybody everywhere without any verification at all. It's not true. I mean, and people in places are counting ballots that you think arrived late. Is that all? Yeah, and you know what? I'll admit it. The no observers thing is weird. A lot of it's pretty damning, if true, but it's not. I could show you facts, but I don't know that would matter. You know, is there any evidence that I could really put forward that would convince the diehard Trumper that there really wasn't any corruption? Sort of like a flat earther. You can sit there showing them evidence, but it doesn't mean they're going to accept it.
And even though the polls closed at 8 o'clock, so they brought it in, and the batches came in, and nobody knew where they came from.
So you don't know that it's fraud, or you don't have any evidence?
We've also been denied access to observe in critical places in Georgia. In multiple swing states, counting was halted for hours and hours on election night, with results withheld from major Democrat-run locations only to appear later. And they suddenly appeared, and they all had the name Biden on them, or just about all.
Yeah, that difference matters. Was it all Biden or mostly Biden?
I think almost all. They all had the name Biden on them, which is a little strange. I challenge Joe and every Democrat to clarify that they only want legal votes.
Sir, you've called us here for an update on your efforts to protect the election from fraud. Shouldn't you be able to clarify whether the Democrats want legal votes or illegal votes? Say so. Don't be afraid. Your whole thesis is that they, who might mean the DNC or Democratic voters, registered Democrats, the city of Philadelphia, I don't know, but they are trying to steal this election. So if they clarified they only wanted legal votes, would you really believe them? And if so, why? I don't understand why you'd ask this if you were really concerned that these were corrupt people you were dealing with. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you think about it.
Because they talk about votes, and I think they should use the word legal votes. We want every legal vote counted, and I want every legal vote counted. We want openness and transparency. This country is going to win. That's the way the United States will win. And we think we will win the election very easily. We think there's going to be a lot of litigation.
If you're going to win easy, what's with all the litigation?
Because we have so much evidence, so much proof.
Yeah, if only there was some sort of conference of the press you could call, where they'd all show up with cameras and videotape your every word, and you'd be allowed to explain this to the public somehow, and present your evidence in an unchallenged way. I know. You don't want to tip your hand. You got to save it for litigation. All right, let's see what facts you brought forward in Michigan to try to substantiate your allegations of fraud.
I looked at the affidavit repeatedly, and the affidavit appeared to say to me that there was a person who had been approached by another human being who is unnamed but described as a participant in the counting process, and that individual who is unnamed but a participant in the accounting process gave information to the affiant that indicated that there was some malfeasance going forward. So what I have at best is a hearsay affidavit, I believe, that addresses a harm that would be significant, but that's what we've got. We've got an affidavit that is not firsthand knowledge. If there is something in that affidavit that the affiant observed activity that would be a deprivation of the rights of poll watchers, I want you to please focus my attention on that.
It would.
That's probably not relevant, is it?
And it's going to end up perhaps at the highest court in the land. Disaster. Small elections were a disaster. Small, very easy to handle elections were disastrous. This is a large-scale version, and it's getting worse and worse every day. We're hearing stories that are horror stories, absolute horror stories.
Like what?
And we can't let that happen to the United States of America. It's not a question of who wins, Republican, Democrat, Joe, myself. We can't let that happen to our country. We can't be disgraced by having something like this happen.
Disgraced, I hear that.
So it will be hopefully cleared up, maybe soon, I hope soon, but it'll probably go through a process, a legal process. And as you know, I've claimed certain states, and he's claiming states, and we can both claim the states.
Sir, that is not how this works. This is not like how you call shotgun with your siblings. The way this works is we cast the votes. We appoint people to count the votes. They count the votes and tell us who we hired. What you claim plus $2 will get you a small cup of coffee someplace. And that's about it.
But ultimately, I have a feeling judges are going to have to rule. But there's been a lot of shenanigans, and we can't stand for that in our country. Thank you very much.
So that was Donnie's update on his efforts to fight corruption in this election. Trying to piece it all together, it seems like the administration is asking the campaign to fight frauds in the courts because the administration was unable to stop fraud before it happened. If the facts are as Donnie says they are, that's pretty damning. No poll watchers allowed in places, people being thrown out, secret ballot count rooms. Oh my God, it sounds real bad. But that's the thing. Facts are difficult to figure out. I'm not in Detroit. I'm not in Philadelphia. I have to operate on the presumption that unless there's clear evidence otherwise, votes get counted. We've all got to find a way to really listen to these people, to really see through the nonsense arguments they put forward. And that politicians try to trick people, well, that's not a GOP problem. It's not even really a political problem. That's an issue in American life right now. I mean, you need to really listen to people. Assume, well, if your facts are right, and then really think about where that leads you. If it leads you to a place that doesn't make any sense, well, we may not be able to decide the facts. We can still figure out if what somebody's saying makes sense. And when somebody makes vague allegations about them doing things in places, it's a red flag, big red flag. So if you love someone who really believes what Donnie has said in this speech, show them this video. You alone, on your own, just thinking about his words, should be able to poke enough holes into this thing to sink it. Well, that's it for me today. Let me know what you think of this format. I'd be happy to look at more political speeches and really dissect the doublespeak or hidden meaning there. Everybody stay safe, wash your hands, wear the mask, like, share, subscribe, comment, share this with a Trump supporter in your life. Catch you next time. Until then, keep thinking.
Now I'm busy with this mule.
I lost the pen. Oh, there it is. I found it.